first going off to college, I grew up in West Texas, and I had always lived pretty much in the same community. I went to one school, kindergarten through graduation, one school song, one group of friends. And inside that group of friends, there were these two guys. And from junior high on, the three of us were almost inseparable. We used to go to one of the guys' houses on a lake and sit on his dock and talk for hours. We were Dr. Pepper junkies, and so we would each get a cold 3-liter of Dr. Pepper and just sit on his dock. Sometimes we were serious and we talked about hard things, and sometimes we were figuring out the world, and sometimes we spent the night just joking around. We thought we were the funniest people on the planet. I laughed so much with those guys. Anyway, when it came time for all of us to choose schools, we all had different directions. One of us was staying to go to the university in our hometown. Another was headed to a school in Nebraska to play football, and I was going to Colorado. The night before I left, we went to that dock with Dr. Pepper and really bad cigars. And we talked for a few hours and had a great time, and I ended up being the first one to leave. I can remember walking up to the dock and through my friend's backyard, and I remember that I felt like something was changing. I was literally walking away from those times, and I could feel a chapter of my life closing in on itself. If I think about it, I can still feel that moment. This was the moment when I first realized how small I was, that life was never going to stand still, and that I would constantly be leaving people and places behind, and that I had no idea what the future held. I have this other friend who says that for him, there's something zen about driving at night. For some reason, long trips just let him disconnect from pressures and stresses, deadlines and tasks. His mind clears and the rest of the world melts away. He told me about this one time going to Pittsburgh with his brothers and his dad. They're in two cars. He's in a car with one of his brothers, and his other brother is in the car with his dad. So they're trying to find their way into the city, and they start to get confused. Now, if you know anything about traveling with the family, you know what's coming. They get confused. One car takes the exit on the right, and one car takes an exit on the left. My friend ends up like 3 miles behind his dad. They're split up, and everyone is frustrated. There's heated phone conversations and frantic map reading, and most likely some aggressive navigation suggestions. At one point, my friend's car enters a tunnel. They come out on the other side, and this view opens up beneath them. Suddenly, they're looking down at Pittsburgh at night. Street lights and office buildings, neighborhoods and cars. They're sprawled out in front of them, and for a moment, there's peace. No directions, no exits, no fights, no right or wrong, just riding in the car and being in that moment. He said it was so surreal, and this moment has stayed with him. We all have these moments, don't we? These moments when time seems to slow down and we gain a little perspective on our lives. The past doesn't seem to weigh us down, and the future no longer bangs on our door. We can just live in that moment. In one of the Psalms, the writer Asaph shares one of these moments. He says, "I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and my soul would not be comforted." He's in this torment and crying out to his God, and he can find no peace. His very soul seems to run from comfort. Then in the text, we see the word Selah. Some people say it's a musical reference that calls for a dramatic rest in the song. Some people say it's a transition where the writer takes a turn in his emotion and perspective and begins in a new direction. Regardless, it's a moment where the writer says, wait, I have to wait. I have to stay right here in this moment. I don't want to rush past this, and I don't want you to rush past it either. Sit here in my torment and in my pain. Rest in this moment with me. It's as though the writer is calling us to have one of these moments. I think too often, I think of Sabbath as a day when I don't do stuff, when I don't do work or tasks or chores, when I don't have a busy schedule and I don't catch up on emails. But I think I might be cheating myself if I just focus on what Sabbath isn't. What is Sabbath? Maybe it can be the times when I live in a moment. where I just focus on playing with my dog or spending time with the people I love. And I don't mean just spending time around them, but sharing that time with them. Maybe for you, it's something with your kids that you've been meaning to do for a long time. Maybe it's reading a great book or writing a song, building a table. Maybe it's flirting with your spouse just because you haven't in a long time. I think Sabbath holds more for our lives than don'ts and shouldn'ts. I think it's a time that God calls us to step away from the past and leave the future for tomorrow. A time when we see the world as it is and experience our life here and now. I believe God calls us to realize that we were designed for this moment, and this moment, and this moment. He calls us to realize that our lives and His promises are too precious for us to rush past them for meetings, or TV, or soccer practice. He calls us to live in the here and now. He calls us